Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here, with my next Avatar video. This is going to be the results of the Avatar The Last Airbender Awards. So, back in early January, just about a month ago, I opened up voting in this thing I was doing, the Avatar Awards. So I set up 35 categories, 35 awards to vote in, and it's been a month, and people have voted. I have now, calculated everything, I've counted all the votes, and I now have winners for all 35 of those categories. And that's what I'm going to go over in this video. So, just before that, a couple of little things to get into. This video will just be about the winners of each award. There'll be a podcast coming out on Sunday, where myself and Greg will go more in depth on what came in second place, third place in every award, and we'll be in general discussing what we think about the results of these awards, because if you look at this thing in total, it acts as a sort of survey currently on the fandom and what they feel about the series. So there's some interesting stuff I think to discuss coming out of this. In terms of statistics, around 53 votes were submitted. I say around because some voters didn't vote in every category and a few barely voted in any of the categories. So there's about 4 or 5 votes where, they only really played a role in a handful of awards, and then a decent amount of votes where maybe one person skipped past one award because they couldn't think of anything. But for the most part, I think most of the 53 are completed votes in full. And with regards to 53 over the course of a month, considering how many awards there were and how some of the categories were a bit more complicated than others, and how long it actually took to vote, even myself I noted that, I'm very happy with that turnout because it required a good amount of time even to vote in this. It wasn't a simple, it took 10 seconds to vote type thing. You really had to sit down and vote in all of the categories, and because of that, I think it gives a good sense that this is realistically, a hardcore survey of really, passionate Avatar fans here who put the time in to vote in this. So, and then final thing here, just going to have a little bit of fun before we get into the actual awards. Because I had to obviously spend a lot of time counting the awards, going through the votes from everyone, and some people didn't follow the instructions, the clear instructions I gave exactly perfectly. It sort of lengthened the amount of time it took me to count. So I'm going to have a little bit of fun at the expense of some of the people who put in some poor formatting and made some weird mistakes with their votes here. In something I want to call the Questionable Votes Awards. So first up, we have this award here, which is the How Did That Happen Award. And this award is for basically someone who voted in a category and they basically made a mistake here. What they voted for in that category doesn't make any sense for that category here. And the winner for this is this one here. So this person, who I'm leaving anonymous just to save any kind of embarrassment here, in their vote for Best Airbending Moment, they chose Original Firebending. I think you can see the problem. And as you can see here from my comment on screen, was it the fact that the dragon's fire was a fire tornado that caused the problem? I'm not really sure. And if you're wondering if they just made a mistake with placement of things, they did also pick a firebending moment for the Firebender Award. So it wasn't that they mixed air and fire up or anything. So that's interesting. Next up is the That Is Not an Award. This one goes to someone who didn't follow the instructions so much that when they were voting, they added in extra awards that weren't even part of this whole thing. So the winner for this is this one, where someone added in 4 extra awards. Not just 1, 4 extra awards that weren't even part of this. To what aim, I don't really know. Clearly they didn't watch the video or really follow the instructions all that much. They voted in some of the actual categories, but it was all over the place a little bit on this one. This was one of the more complicated votes to try and get any information out of. But as you can see here, they went with Best Side Villain, Best Avatar Movie, Best Avatar Game, Worst Avatar Game. I didn't include anything about the games because I think a lot of people are relatively unfamiliar with them. But that's just a weird one. Next up is the You Are No Fun Award. And this is just for, some of the awards that we have here are more for, like, it's not really trying to find out anything serious about people's opinions on things. It's just a fun little thing to vote on. And some people decided to be very serious about it and not vote in it for kind of weird reasons. And the winner for this one is going to go to this one. In these two categories, the most attractive male and most attractive female character, someone decided that to be so serious about it, even though it was just for fun, and say, as their most attractive male character, I am not gay. So, what is there to really say about that? Pretty much everyone else voted and didn't feel the need to say anything like that. So, I think they've drawn more attention to themselves by not voting than they would have by just, playing along. So, just wanted to point that out. And then the final one here is the I Cannot Follow Simple Instructions Award, otherwise known as Worst Vote. This is the vote that when I came to it, I had to pretty much stop everything, stop the flow of me going through the votes, counting things really quickly, read through this vote to try and interpret if they voted for anything, what categories have they voted for, have they not voted for, and this is the winner. I've blurred out the avatar and username, so, again, anonymous. And as you can see here, there's a lot going on here. There are 35 awards to vote in, and there's maybe 6 or 7 voted for here. There's one award that's made up here, which is Best Bending, which wasn't an actual award. And again, the most obvious thing here is that I didn't follow the instructions award. How many times in the original video did I say copy and paste the list, which is in the comment section, into your comment and just type in your ones afterwards? I've done the formatting for you. You just have to give your opinion on each award. And then this person starts off with the best looking female character, which is like award number 15 or 16 or something like that. So this was pretty much a nightmare to come down to every time I went through it. I did go through it. I did include what I could out of this, but it was very difficult because the formatting was all over the place, as you can see. So, that just gives you an idea of, like, in terms of how this video came to be. Let's not forget that I spent like 6-7 hours going through people's votes like 30 plus times to count every award. So this is just to get some of that stress off my chest here. But now for the actual awards here. So the first one was Best Book. Only 3 things to vote for here. The easiest award, I think, to vote for. And the winner was Book 3, Fire. Which to me is a little bit of a surprise, in that usually Book 2 does quite well, but Book 3, Fire got it this time. Next, we'll do Best and Worst Book 1 episode at the same time. So the Best Book 1 episode was a little bit of a surprise to me. 112, The Storm, episode 12. And the Worst Book 1 episode, not at all a surprise, 111, The Great Divide. So they're pretty interesting, I think. Moving on to the Best and Worst Book 2 episode. The Best Book 2 episode went to 220, Crossroads of Destiny, the finale. And then the Worst Book 2 episode went to 205, Avatar Day. Which again, like I think expected for the best. I don't necessarily agree with Avatar Day as being the worst episode, but we'll save the discussion for the podcast later on in the week. Next up, Best and Worst Book 3 episode. So Best went to 321, Avatar Aang, and Worst went to 309, Nightmares and Daydreams. I need to add in a caveat here, because this was one of the ones where the most, I think, confusion in the voting came up. And I'll talk about this again in just a second. So, Best Book 3 award was one of the closest votes that was out there. And the reason for that is, and the reason I'm saying there's confusion about this, is because some people voted for just Sozin's Comet. That's all they said in their vote. They just voted for all 4 episodes together in what the finale movie is called, Sozin's Comet. Even though the award is Best Episode, people still voted for an overall group of 4 episodes. It left me with a big confusion about what to do with the, I think it's 2 or 3 votes that people specifically said Sozin's Comet and didn't specify which part. And I didn't want to just ignore them because obviously 3 votes for just Sozin's Comet wasn't going to win on its own, and people had voted specifically for 321. Some people had voted for 320. I think actually 319 got a couple of votes as well. But what happened was that in the end, 321 people who specifically voted for it, plus people who voted for the episode Avatar and the Fire Lord, were very close in the end. And I had to do something with those Sozin's Comet awards. So I just gave those votes to 321. And I did that because I felt like that's what the sort of general theme of the votes I was getting was going for. That more people overall were voting for finale stuff in general than specifically 306 Avatar and the Fire Lord. Now, obviously, it would take too long to go and ask those people who voted for Sozin's Comet to specify an episode. But just keep that in mind, that if you take away those 3 votes, which could go to different episodes, the winner of this category could actually be 306 Avatar and the Fire Lord. So just keep that in mind, that it's like 321 but also 306, kind of like even, depending on what way you want to interpret the way the awards went there. I'll go into that more in depth on the podcast, but I just want to clarify that now. Similarly with that, it's the same situation with Best Overall Episode. Sozin's Comet Part 4 Avatar Aang technically gets the victory, but it technically gets that victory because I gave it those three votes that went to just Sozin's Comet, rather than the specific part of Sozin's Comet. In this case, the runner-up was actually a tie between 306 Avatar and the Fire Lord and 220 Crossroads of Destiny. So again, you can sort of interpret this as like a 3-way tie if you want, or specifically that it is actually just a tie between 306 and 220. I'll leave that up to you, but that's what the votes are saying, that it's one of those 3 episodes, basically. Worst overall episode goes to 111, The Great Divide. Very obvious one. I don't personally think it's the worst episode of Avatar, but again, we'll save the discussion for the podcast. Next up, Most Popular Character Award. This is what you voted for as your favorite character, but obviously for me in presenting the results, to say favorite character doesn't like grammatically feel correct, so most popular character I think is the best way to present it as, but that's what this one is, favorite character, most popular character. It went to Zuko, of course. As to be expected, I think I was very interested to see what certain other characters, how they did in terms of characters I would usually associate as being very popular within the fandom, but Zuko won fairly comfortably in the end, so that was interesting to see. Next up, worst character went to Jet, surprisingly. I never really got the impression that the fandom heavily disliked Jet all that much, but, you know, he won fairly comfortably, so that's an interesting one for me, but Jet wins worst character. Best minor character is a tie between Suki and the Cabbage Merchant. This is an interesting one because I feel that this is partly due to probably a lack of clarification from me about what I meant by minor character, and I think what people interpreted this as. The impression I get from the awards, the votes that I counted, was that basically half of the people interpreted this as best basically one shot or like very minor character, and then half of the people interpreted as I think what my intent with this award was, which is basically best character who is not one of the main character awards. Meaning basically best character who is not Aang, Zuko, Sokka, Katara, Toph, Azula, Iroh type thing. So I think the fact that it's actually a tie between Suki and Cabbage Merchant means that we can pretty much say that like Suki and Cabbage Merchant almost like individually won separate awards. Suki wins like best like supporting character, best character who's in a big position but is not in as many episodes to basically make her a main character, and then Cabbage Merchant wins the award that is best kind of very minor recurring character who's only in like a handful of episodes as a very, very minor character. So that's the way I'm interpreting the awards. I'm just presenting it here as like in terms of what you voted for. It was a tie between the two of them, but I think the way to interpret it is that they basically both won individual awards for their type of character that they are within the show. Suki is more of a kind of secondary character, and the Cabbage Merchant is a very minor character. But we'll move on. Best character development went to Zuko, which was interesting to see him win both the popular character and also the character development award. But no problem with that at all. Next up is best animal, and this one went to Appa. So obviously Sky Bison was the winner. My intent with this award was more about the species, but it doesn't really matter if you voted for a name of an animal or the animal itself. Sky Bison, Appa still won very comfortably. Next up, best spirit, and this one went to Wan Shi Tong, the knowledge spirit. A few people did vote for stuff like Roku as best spirit and Roku's dragon as best spirit. Whereas I think my intent with this was more about spirit that is like actually a spirit from the spirit world type thing, along the lines of Wan Shi Tong and Hey Bai, that sort of thing. But Wan Shi Tong won, and I don't think the slight confusion would have caused any issues in what actually did win. Next up, best location went to the Western Air Temple, and yeah, just looking at the screenshot here, what a great location. We're only in it for a little bit, but I like that it does get a decent focus in the final season, that they get to kind of camp out here for a while. Really cool location. Would love to see more of it when it was like properly active, so really cool. Next up, best villain might as well have just been called the Azula Award, because she won it extremely comfortably. Azula wins best villain. Next up, our fun awards here. Most attractive male character, and this one went to Zuko. Again, I don't think that's really much of a surprise. He won it, of course. And then, also to be expected, most attractive female character went to Katara. So, that's very interesting that the fun ones went that way. On a similar trend, best ship or couple went to Katang. Of course, I don't think this was in any doubt, but nice to see Katang win an award. And then similarly, best romantic moment went to Katara and Aang's kiss from the finale. So back-to-back Katang kissing moments there, so that's cool. Next up, funniest moment, and again, this one might as well have been called the Cactus Juice Award, because anytime I've done Avatar Awards and included a funniest moment, Cactus Juice always wins. And while the votes actually show it to be a little bit closer than usual, Cactus Juice still is the classic Avatar super funny moment, and I think it's a worthwhile winner every time, because it is such a memorable moment from the show, just the whole Cactus Juice thing. Next up, most epic moment. This one goes to Aang entering the Avatar state versus Ozai, of course, coming out of the rubble in the Avatar state, pulling Ozai down by his beard. Great moment. It is absolutely epic. It's the tide turning in the fight, and it was a huge shift in the final battle to see that happen and go into the Avatar state. Very cool moment. I think worthwhile winner of the Epic Moment Award. Next up, most emotional moment, and this one went to Iroh singing Leaves from the Vine in memory of his son Lu Ten on Lu Ten's birthday. So again, very emotional moment from the Tales of Ba Sing Se, specifically the tale of Iroh, combined with I suppose the death of Iroh's voice actor and all that sort of stuff that went along with it. It's a very emotional moment on multiple fronts, both for the character in universe but also out of universe, relating to the character as well. So I completely get why this won most emotional moment. Next up, most shocking moment, and there's no pun intended here, but it's slightly funny that shocking moment and the winning thing is a lightning attack. But it is Azula killing Aang from the Book 2 finale. Now, if you're wondering, wait, Aang dies? Yes, it is technically confirmed that Aang actually is dead for at least a little bit. Obviously, Katara revives him almost immediately with the spirit water, but Aang is dead for a little bit, and that's why there's the whole confusion with the Avatar state going into Book 3. It's why the whole Escape from the Spirit World webcomics happen in between Book 2 and 3. it's a whole thing, but yes, Aang does actually die for a little bit, and I think that's a large part of why this one most shocking moment, because in addition to this being the defeat of the heroes in Book 2, the loss of the Earth Kingdom, the main character dying is a very significant thing, even if it was immediately reversed. Just to see them defeated so aggressively like that, it's really intense. Next up, best fight goes to Zuko versus Azula in their last Agni Kai. Basically, winner gets the throne is the idea here. And again, to be expected here. It's such a hyped fight. It's a fight that it always comes up when a best fight discussion comes up. Worthy winner. Next up, best quote. And this best quote goes to Iroh from 209 Bitter Work. And specifically the quote, "Prince Zuko, pride is not the opposite of shame, but its source. True humility is the only antidote to shame." I found it to be an interesting winner. It definitely wasn't the one I thought would win of any quote from the show. This winning, and it winning by a fairly comfortable margin, considering that the best quote award is always one where most people have their own specific one. There's very occasionally, the majority decides on just one or two quotes. Most of the time, there's a huge list of people voting for one thing, one time, and it never gets a second vote. But this one got a good few votes and won, and there was nothing really there close to it. So, I found that interesting because it's not necessarily the quote I would go to as being the best one from Avatar. It's a memorable quote, but the most memorable, the best quote, I'm not sure about that. So this is one I'd love to hear, explanation for why people chose this one. It's good, but the best, I'm not sure. Definitely one to discuss on the podcast. Next up, best music, and this was a tie between the Avatar's Love, which is the music that plays during Katara and Aang's kiss at the end, and also Last Agni Kai, which is the music that plays during Zuko and Azula's Agni Kai, again in the finale. So 2 pieces of music from the finale, one covering an emotional action scene, and then one covering an emotional romantic scene, plus the end of the show, full stop. I think it's sort of fitting that it's a tie, that the music is one of the most loved parts of Avatar. People can't decide which is the best. So I think there's something fitting about it being a tie and not just one piece of music winning by a landslide. Like best quote, there were tons of suggestions for this, tons of little moments that only got 1 or 2 votes. So very, very interesting. Next up, best airbending moment, and this one goes to Aang's air projection versus Zuko in Crossroads of Destiny. And as you can see here, this is the one where Aang starts moving really quick. He suddenly stops and sends this air projection of himself at Zuko, which sends Zuko flying back. I think it's the only time he uses this move, and I would have loved to see it return. In the comics or anything going forward, I'd love to see this move come back again. Super, super cool. Worthy winner. Next up, best waterbending moment, and this goes to Katara freezing Azula and basically defeating Azula in this moment. Very cool move, very clever move by Katara to outsmart Azula here, freeze them both, but have the control to kind of just melt the ice around her enough, and then tie up Azula, and then take out the whole ice. Excellent move. What a great final kind of battle moment for the show for Katara. Really, really memorable. Next up, best earthbending moment, and this one goes to Toph metal bending for the first time in the Guru. It's not necessarily what I would have gone for. I probably would have went for a more action-centric earthbending moment, but for the plot significance, the significance of this being metal bending's introduction, I completely get why this wins best earthbending moment, because it is such a it's a moment everyone remembers, and I think that's a large part of why it won. So really cool moment there. Next, best firebending moment, and this one goes to the dragons, the masters, Ran and Shaw, showing Aang and Zuko true firebending, the meaning of true firebending, that it's not just all about power and heat and flames, that there's a sense of, life to it, that fire can be beautiful as well. and this fire tornado that they do with different colored flames, the control over it to not burn Aang and Zuko even though they're so close to it. It was a really significant moment to just show a different side of firebending. So great moment. I completely understand why this one was the winner. Just seeing dragons firebend is so cool. And then, of course, we can't leave the non-benders out. So the best non-bender fighting moment, that one went to Suki capturing the warden solo from the boiling rock. I think everyone remembers this moment. She, runs over the heads of the other prisoners who are rioting, climbs up the wall, amazing acrobatics to get up higher up to get to the warden, takes out guards along the way, captures him on her own. And then afterwards, everyone catches up with her, and they can't believe she's done it already, and they're out of breath just getting up to where she was. So, I think there really was no other one that could have won. I would have been very, very disappointed if this didn't win. So I'm so happy to see Suki get the victory here. Next up, the last two awards, which are comic specific. First one is Best Avatar: The Last Airbender comic. And this one went to The Search in a landslide. Pretty much everyone voted for The Search. So that was really interesting to see that even though there's a lot of people who aren't familiar with the comics, anyone who is, at the very least, knew about The Search. And that The Search was the most important one and widely regarded as the best. Because I definitely got the impression that even some people who voted for The Search probably haven't read all of the comics. So it was interesting to see so many people be familiar with it, even if maybe they haven't touched it yet. So that's interesting. And then the last award is the Best Avatar: The Last Airbender comic moment. And this one went to a moment from Smoke and Shadow. So not The Search, but actually Smoke and Shadow. And it is Ursa confronting Ozai in prison, seeing him with unclouded eyes. Kind of seeing him and no longer being afraid of him, and finally kind of going at him, criticizing him, getting out all of her frustrations from the amount of time that she's almost like wasted and hated being part of his life. Very, very, powerful moment, built up completely from, The Search, the little bits we found out about their relationship from the show. It was all building up to eventually this moment coming around for Ursa, and it's such a satisfying moment when it finally happens. If you're wondering why a moment from The Search didn't win, it's because a lot of people voted for a moment from The Search, but there were so many different choices for it, so many different parts of that book, that it ended up spreading the votes around so much that this one actually ended up winning. So this is actually a very tight category, and especially because, as I said before, not as many people voted in this. This was probably one of the awards that the fewest amount of people voted in, but this was the kind of winner by just a handful of votes. So that is the last award. So I'll just end by saying thank you for voting if you did vote in these awards. I hope you've enjoyed seeing the results here. And I'll just again say, remember to check out the podcast, the Avatar Online podcast, the episode coming out on Sunday. We'll be recording it and releasing it on Sunday. We'll be discussing the results here again, the winners, but also what came in second place in each award, third place in each award, and anything else interesting or notable about the statistics. All be discussed. I'll reveal what I voted for. Greg from the podcast will reveal what he voted for. You'll get all of the detail you didn't perhaps get from this, because I wanted to just focus on the winners here. So again, thanks for voting. That's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.